Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about more complex transitions. And you can even say some of these are a little bit of micro interactions or animations, whatever you feel comfortable calling it. But what I was thinking when I was thinking about, creating this navigation that we just created earlier was that it's beautiful. You see some nice transitions, but sometimes you just want to take it a step further. That could take a lot of time, and it does pay off when you just take a look at that final animation. So I'm going to go through some more complex transitions here, and I want you to kind of do your best to follow along. It doesn't matter if you need to pause the video and, take a break. This is kind of like a little bit extra for those people that are super ambitious, and trying something new, and they want to see a little bit of animation thrown into that navigation. So let's jump right in and I will teach you how. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that base navigation. You see, I already have it copied below. This is our first flow that we created, but we're going to start a new one. I'm going to just take this, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this slider over here, and I'm just going to turn off auto layout so we don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm going to see all these sliders here. We can just turn them off for now, and we're not even going to worry about color or anything right now. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to, create those same 20% opacity for like the other inactive, say. I mean, you can use 10, 20, doesn't even matter. You can just start defining color after you're done, with your animation. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to make sure this slider, so like, let's just duplicate this frame. If I were to make this 100, I'm going to make that 20%, kind of like what we did in the last video. Okay, so let's connect the two. And what we see here, let's actually call this a new flow. Let's just call this complex, because it will get complex, I promise you. So if we take a quick look here, while that loads, it shouldn't take too long. Let's make it much larger. So I do have it set to scale down or up to fill. Okay, so as you see here, generally this is what you need. What we did before was perfectly fine. But if you really want to put a little bit more finishing touch on some of these things, you want to start taking it a bit further with animation. And the way we can do that is by kind of manipulating or adding different states in between. So if I think about the way something animates, maybe, when I think about the way something animates, I may stretch this. Let's do 24. So we're going to remember that's 24 pixels. So, okay, so we will go to prototype and we can start, let's not worry about all these little things. We're going to just bring this back. So when we click this, we're going to automatically go to this screen. And then, we're just going to delete that because we're not going to be going back and forth right now because that's a lot. Let's delete that starting point. And then we will not rely on anything in regards to interactions. So I selected the whole frame there, and I'm going to select after delay. And we're going to make that 1 millisecond because we can't even go 0 milliseconds. The lowest you can go is 1 millisecond. And this is great for if you want an interaction to happen literally right after you have a click or another interaction. So it's almost like there is no delay at all. It just kind of flows into the next screen. So we have this kind of interaction here, and I can show you quickly what that looks like. So if I were to click this, so already we are starting to get a very interesting, kind of animation going. We have the expansion of this little slider line, which is kind of like gaining momentum. So it kind of like pulls back like an elastic and shoots all the way back to the heart. And now we can almost do the exact same thing. I mentioned this before and like why motion is important and like design principles and the other kind of tips videos. I really wanted to get it through everyone's head that when you are applying things like motion or even more complex animations like we're doing right now, we really want them to feel kind of like lifelike. It doesn't just happen, left to right in a linear motion. It's going to kind of act like an elastic. And that's kind of what we want to get through here. And we can kind of do the same thing if we just duplicate that. And what we can do here is we're going to go to design because we're going to modify this. And, it will slide in and maybe it's like something like 16 pixels. That will be good enough. And maybe, so this is where we have to remove auto layout again. We're going to do it on the bottom because we're going to, play around with the heart, because not only are we going to mess around with these slider active states, we're going to mess around with the icons as well. So let's take a look at what we see. So I'm going to prototype. And then same thing, we are going to select this screen in between and we're going to kind of do an after delay as well. So set it to 1 millisecond. We can keep it to 200. That's fine for now until we start kind of fine tuning. But if we start it over again, so we kind of have that, it gets pushed over there and then shrinks back. One thing we can do is move it a bit. So we can go like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's enough. So we can see what that looks like. We're gonna restart it. It's hitting something or it's pulling back. So it's kind of keeping together with what we expect an elastic to do. Let's do it again. Boom. Perfect. I kind of like that. I think it's really smooth. One thing I'm going to do here is now I'm actually going to start thinking about the icon. So we're going to have to definitely do this a little by little, but we can go 1, 2, 3. We can bring that up. And then even on this one, we can maybe even duplicate this. So we'll have like 3 states. One of this icon here that's moving up. 1, 2, 3. So this one is set to 3. Yes, this one's set to -3. I can see it up here. And I can see it up here. So I know they're in the same area. But let's actually increase. So I can do a shift and option at the same time, which will increase it so that it stays in the center. And it doesn't actually move in the sense that it stays put and scales proportionately. So we can do like 28. And we're seeing the same issue here of clipping. So we're going to take our icons frame and we're just going to remove the clip there. And that is fine. So we're going to have it come in. It's going to move up like, hey, I am in active state. I'm going to get bigger. And then I'm going to shrink down. And then that should be good. Now, the only thing left is we need to animate from this screen to this screen. And, we have it on after delay. That is perfectly fine. I mean, we can even reduce this to 100 milliseconds if you wanted to speed it up. So we can go and do something like this. Now, I'm sure you saw what happened there. We had a little bit of a pause, and that's because our after delay was on 800 milliseconds. If we switched it back to 1, like we should have done in the first place, we get a nicer transition. So maybe 100 milliseconds was a bit too harsh there. So we have a little animation there. Pretty nice. We can even extend this animation a bit longer, I think. So when the scale does happen, it's really nice. Boom. And there you go. And one thing I saw happening there was that, the clipping was happening again. So just making sure that we're going to remove this on every single frame that houses all the icons. So we don't get any more clipping. Boom. And there you go. We've created a nice little animation. Amazing. So that's the first one we're going to create. And the next one, we're going to go on to creating the cart animation.